Yo, Adam, I think that might be on your side. Make sure you turn that off. What is going on, guys?
I think that you got to unmute the mic on the Twitter Spaces there, brother.
Oh, it is unlocked. Oh, there we go. Hello. Hello, everybody. Good morning. Looks like we got a light crowd. We're going to hang out here for a second. Hello, Ordinal Bunnies. I'll be on a show, or Ordinal Rabbits. Sorry, guys. I'll be on a show with them. ETH Horde on Sunday. ETH Horde, what's good, bro? How's it going?
Morning. Just brewing up some cafe.
Yeah, man, dude. Same. Thanks everyone for hanging in. We had to push the episode an hour earlier today, so it probably caught a few people off guard. What a freaking wild week it's been, man. Absolutely wild. Oh man, Adam, how are you feeling, bro?
Bro, I am I'm so tired. It's like, you know, when you get to this sort of age, man, you work in 15-hour days. It takes a toll, man. I'm enjoying it and I'm loving it, but it's been rough, man. It's a bit of a rough week for sure.
Yeah, it's been long. Everyone that's in here, make sure that you share the show. We're going to dive in here in a second to everything Bitcoin punks, Emblem Vault, ordinals, historical NFTs, rare Pepes, collecting, and so much more. There's a lot to go on. So I think we're waiting here for our co-host, but man, I mean, I'll dive in. I know a lot of people that are here have been following everything that's been going on, especially with Bitcoin punks and Emblem Vault and this ordinal stuff, man. We got caught a little bit actually here, so everyone's here now. It was kind of funny how last week's show, I think there was only one ordinal that had been vaulted at Emblem Vault.
Was that true?
I think it was it was like one or two. There was the one that was for auction, and then I think that was it. And then by the time that we got off the show, there was like 15 or 20. And then by the end of the day, there was like hundreds. And I was like, oh my God, this is we're not prepared for this.
Does that feel like a month ago?
Oh man.
Dude, it's literally 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it is crazy, like, just to think that we were, as we saw ordinals kind of happening, we were like, oh wow, are we gonna have to like do something to like figure out a way to get these on Emblem Vault? And sure enough, just the community or just people were like, oh, I know Emblem Vault. Let me see if I can get it in there. And like it just happened naturally. Like we didn't even have to do anything. It was crazy.
Yeah, I want to blame Obi for this. He's the one that put the article out. And, you know, it's funny actually, because we've been through this so many times as a historical NFT community, from, you know, just like having to hop on the randomness of whatever's happening, whether it's an excavation of a project or trying to answer questions and some technical difficulties. So when he put that thread up of how to vault, it really reminded me of just the early historical NFT days where Justin Trimble or ETH Horde had to put out information of how to rescue these mooncats, or you or Leo had to go and put out things of how to mint Mitchell Chan's IKB or every dude. It's just like, it's kind of just like really textbook blueprint of just right out of the book of the historical NFT community helping. I mean, of course, we haven't really completely figured everything out, but man, holy crap.
But yeah, it was like Obi is in the perfect position because he's very familiar with it, right? And he just put out that one little thing, and it's, you know, it's really just two steps, right? And so those early guys who were doing inscriptions, who had the full node, were just like, oh, here you go, and just put it in, right? And obviously then it took off. We did the one on Sparrow Wallet, sending from the Sparrow Wallet and stuff, and that allowed a bunch of newbies to get into it. And here we are, man.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, between you and Leo, you guys had to put in at least 50 Twitter Spaces last week. Oh man, Leo.
We skipped last night. I was like, dude, do you want to do one tonight? I feel like I've been on Spaces, for 40 or 50 hours, and we probably have been on Spaces for 40 or 50 hours this week. I don't know. How do you feel about that, Leo?
I mean, dude, your job is much harder than mine. Like, you were having to be like customer support this entire week, like literally like millions of dollars of like customer support. Like, I just got to kind of hang out and talk. Like you were on like the hot seat in a lot of these spaces, to be honest. So like your job was harder than mine, but yeah, I mean it's been a fun week, honestly. I like this kind of stuff. I think it's fun. The energy's back. Like we get this kind of like middle of the bear market fun thing with ordinals. Like I love that, right? I love the name of the show here, Jake, or whoever. I'm assuming that was Jake's your idea. So yeah, guys, I love this. I'm here for it. Happy to discuss ordinals and then anything else going on as well.
Yeah, we loaded up quite a few things for today. I mean, first we're just going to dive into Emblem Vault and Bitcoin Punks and everything, and then we'll share everything else, ordinals and updates. So tracking back to last Friday, man, as we said, there was about 1 to 2 ordinals that were vaulted during this show last week, and then by the time the show was over, there was about 15 to 20. And then a few hours later, there was like 200 to 300. And between that point and we'll say Sunday over the weekend, we saw close to 2,000 to 3,000 ETH in volume on Emblem Vault, which is absolutely insane. I have the screen pulled up for on the YouTube live show that people can see. There was about, this is the highest sailing weekend of Emblem Vault since actually the Gary V pump in the historical NFT community around
Is that
days.
true?
Yeah, here, let me see if I can I'm gonna share this tab instead. You could see right here. So see this the volume meter we had right here. It looks like about 2,500 sales over the week, or 2,500 ETH in sales over the weekend, plus some trickling. It goes all the way back to January 9th of 2022, where there was 1,800 ETH in sale, which is around that Gary V crypto skulls, kind of that last like wide surge of the historical NFT pump. I don't remember why specifically it is. I think it's just because historical NFTs were kind of going crazy.
Historical just moved at that time. It was like just came to the top of the people's mind and radar, right? It's kind of like, I mean, we've talked about it already, Jake, but for the listeners out there to understand, for Emblem Vault, like this was always the idea of being able to trade any NFT from any blockchain, just wherever the liquidity is. And this was kind of like, I mean, we never would have predicted this when, you and I joined the Emblem Vault team, but this is like the next use case after historical NFTs. Like we knew it would happen. We just didn't know what it was going to be. And it's just been, it's been amazing, right? Just to see like, oh shoot, here's the exact use case we were talking about. We didn't know what it was going to be, but here it is. And that's been just very reaffirming, right? Like the thesis was correct. And I think that's been amazing.
Yeah, it's more than exciting. And just for point of reference, the all-time high most volume sale day for Emblem Vault is 7,000 ETH on September 12th. That is a lot of fucking ETH in one day. Especially
what was going off then? That's a bunch of Nakamotos right there. What the heck happened that day?
I'm pretty sure this day was the day that there was, I think that was the all-time high sale for Emblem Vault. It was like 300,000 USDC for the Satoshi card. I believe there was a bunch of Nakamotos going off. And this is at the time when Ethereum was $3,000 to $4,000. So just a small, this just looks like a small blip on this activity meter compared to everything else. Leo, you're about to say something. Go ahead.
So I looked up on the Ordinals market site, and there's 2,318 of these Bitcoin punks right now vaulted. Like, what do you guys think about that? What do you guys think about people also like using you guys as infrastructure to build on top of? That's like an entirely new layer of what y'all do. Like, how's the team thinking about that?
It's super funny that you say that, because I actually put a tweet out about this, and at the time I think it was only 1,800 had been vaulted here. I'm gonna pull this up.
Wow. So
right
what'd
here.
You say it was 3,500 right now?
2,300.
Yeah.
2,300.
So we've got five. So since February 15th, today's the 17th. So in 2 days since I tweeted, I put there 3,842 wrapped V1 punks and 1,818 vaulted Bitcoin punks. Said any chance that the BC punks overtake V1s with more assets on OpenSea. This isn't taking away credibility or anything like that. Of course, there's some people who are going to be triggered by it, and I actually put trigger warning as a response because I knew it was going to trigger some people. But 500 more vaulted in 2 days. That just shows the demand for this. It's interesting because we've been in contact with the team who's running Bitcoin Punks. We've also been in contact with the dev team who kind of built out some of these markets and stuff. And it does not seem like this demand is going away. I'm going to be completely honest. I know a lot of people are calling it the copy pasta. Maybe there's IP infringement. Could very well be, honestly. Like, I don't know what's going to be happening here. Does Yuga Labs want to go down this, the lawsuit again, or the DMCA thing of copyright infringement, although they are, pretty much balls deep in the Ryder Rips and Poly one and a bunch of other ones as well. They just served, I think, Jay Colombo for using a copyright of their logo for one of his open editions. So they, could very well happen. But until then, the community here is very interested in this. On the Emblem side, we went through some technical difficulties, right, and some upgrades, which I'll cover after this. But this, to me, it seems a lot different than any other punk derivative that we've seen. You have Pride Punks, the historical collection, which I own, right? I think that's the only punks that I own, actually. This has much more volume, maybe because it's on Bitcoin, maybe because the amount of sales that have happened is just trounces Pride Punks. I saw some comparisons of Bitcoin Punks to Solana Punks back in the day. I don't remember that. There was that VC who spent like $50K on one of the Solana Punks, which ended up going to zero. But to me,
I guess the only difference is this is Bitcoin, right?
I think so. I mean, Adam, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like, if this was happening on Tezos, nobody would care, right? It's because it's Bitcoin, and that's just something that you can't replicate. This kind of interest. The level of interest from, people who are Bitcoin native, but at the same time, and like I've tried to, when I've been talking to Bitcoin native people, even if you get them, even if Bitcoin gets them, if somebody gets a atomic trading marketplace up on Bitcoin, like, my gut says still the majority of trading is going to go on Ethereum, like, just because that's where the liquidity is. And who knows what's going to happen with the legal cases and stuff. We're actually on the NFT Now show on Monday. We're going to have Brian, who's an expert on Brian Fay on legal issues and copyright IP protection issues, expert. And so we're going to go down the rabbit hole with him and get his take on it, which is always pretty awesome. So I'm excited for that show.
Yeah, that's actually pretty good. So I'll definitely be tuning into that. Just from a team perspective, Emblem Vault, we've definitely discussed the idea of it. It's we have to prepare for every situation, whether there is some infringement or whether it's looked past it, or maybe the orange background is the deciding factor of why it's not, or maybe because there's precedent of tons of other punks derivatives or very close. But we've internally discussed all outcomes, because as a team and a business, you kind of have to. And we'll see. I mean, maybe we'll find out a little bit more information, but we have reached out to multiple people to try to get some answers on it. But it's really never cut and dry or black and white until something happens.
Yeah, dude, at the end of the day, anybody can sue anybody for anything, right? At the end of the day. And so there is no preventing any of that sort of stuff. It would be interesting. I mean, yeah, I guess if they were going to attack, probably going after us would be the best way to kind of kill the market for those things. That's just, that's possible. But it seems like at the end of the day, who are they going to sue? Are they going to sue the, I don't know, Leo probably has a number, the 800 different wallets that minted these things or created them? I mean, yeah, it seems very unlikely. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. It'll be interesting for sure.
Yep. A GM to Nifty Universe, who said GM on the YouTube live stream, and also GM to Arino Vision. I probably butchered that. GM to both of you. Dogfather, I believe, had his hand up first. So GM to Dogfather, what's on your mind?
Hey, how's it going? So just wanted to add my two things. I think for the Bitcoin punks, the free mint was a big plus, that you build up a community fast. And I mean, they have 20,000 followers on Twitter already after 2 weeks.
Oh wow, is that amazing? That's true. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, in 2 weeks, right? That's something. And I think also from the development side, they built up this very neat website, and very quickly when others were like not having much. And I think both of that and of course it's CryptoPunks, right? CryptoPunks is always something special. Plus on Bitcoin, but I mean, I think there are a few things coming together that this is that successful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're watching the live stream, you could just see the sales that have happened this week. We on the video component, we always have the top Emblem sales of the week. There was an alien that sold for 22 ETH. There was an ape that sold for 11 ETH. There's about 4 or 5 zombies that sold in the 7 ETH range, and I believe the top hoodie is around 6 ETH. This is not including also the over-the-counter sales that are happening in Bitcoin. I know Leo had dropped like 2 or 3 Bitcoin on some aliens and stuff very early, and I know there's been some.
The Ryan Carson sale.
And then we had the big one. I was going to say.
Ryan Carson. Leo, can you tell what was inclusive of that? I just saw the sale. I saw him getting wrecked by the community. I don't know if it's warranted or not. I mean, this guy Ryan, dude, poor Ryan, man. If you're ever listening to this, man, I'm sorry. No matter what you do, NFT Twitter just hates you. I don't know what it is, man. Hang in there. You know, when maybe just because every single NFT trader's made horrible investments. Ryan obviously is in the spotlight because of the Moonbirds thing and, you know, some maybe controversial takes that he has. But Leo, tell us about that sale. What was inclusive of it and what's your thoughts on it?
So I'm not sure I'm allowed to say what's inclusive of it, to be honest. So I'm just not going to say that. But yeah, it definitely included an alien. And it was like a basket of rare, like Bitcoin CryptoPunk. So yeah, I mean, basically there was an OTC trade that Ryan did, nothing like super wild there. And yeah, basically, I think the issue was he tweeted it out and it kind of was basically like him kind of, you know, it could be viewed as him promoting it or like feeding into it. And essentially there's a lot of CryptoPunk people who are powerful in this space. They have a bunch of CryptoPunk bags. And, you know, Ryan's doing like business with a bunch of people in this space. And I'm sure many of them hold those CryptoPunks and don't like him tweeting about, you know, promoting like the ripping of IP to like Bitcoin. And I think it's pretty much that simple. So I'm sure he got like 20 DMs, you know, telling him, you know, what are you doing, bro? And then took it down. And I think that's really it, honestly. And, you know, the people on Twitter can just kind of have all their fun hot takes and try to engagement farm it. But all it is like the guy took a pretty big bet on something, which, to be honest, I respect anybody who's going out and making a kind of contrarian value play. And he's going to hold it for 4 years because that's how his fund works. So I think that's really an interesting thing that he did there. He maybe have overpaid a little bit. I think I probably could have found him a better deal.
Yeah, he got in a little late too. I thought, you know, if he was really thinking about doing that, he should have day or two earlier would have been the better play.
Yeah, he just probably shouldn't have tweeted it out given all of his business relationships in the space. That's kind of my TLDR.
Yeah, he's probably obliged to because of the 121G, which is his investment group. You're held to different standards. Although I don't know specifically within the NFT realm if you have to follow the traditional financial regulations or not. I don't know. I'm not an expert in that field, but I just know that it's a different playbook that people have to follow. Ethord, I know you
did it wrong.
Yeah, Ethord, I know you had your hand up. So what is good? Good morning.
Yeah, just kind of building off what Dogfather and kind of we're all talking about here. I think it's about the organic kind of, you know, community building, free mint, decentralization of it. Yeah, it's a copy pasta of the Bitcoin or, you know, punks, and I'm not sure exactly how that'll last in the long-term future, but I don't know much about Solana punks. I'm pretty sure like most of these projects, it's someone that has them all, they mint them and they try to sell them off, and more of a money grab than this. You know, you had a dev that pretty much was devoted to just let people join in and see if it happened, and organically, right, it minted out in a couple of days. I'm always drawn to those things. I think those are cool. Obviously, you know, Mooncats were similar, and it's those types of things that, I mean, the original CryptoPunks were kind of like that too. So that's nice. The one question I have, and maybe Dogfather can look into this because he is our guy to do this. I'm wondering how many unique wallets actually did participate in minting this, because it would give kind of a good understanding of, you know, not just whales, but really how many different people were involved in getting this.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I've heard differing reports on how many the devs actually got, upwards of 800 or 1,000 that they actually minted. So just puts in perspective. I mean, we don't know. I don't know exactly, but yeah, that's always an interesting point. Well, were there only 5 guys minted all these, or did more? It seems like more, because I know it was out there in public and people were minting in public. So I don't know if anybody else has any info on that.
Yeah, so Cyrus, who's like one of the biggest NFT traders, in a tweet, he had said that the Bitcoin Punks team had claimed 20 to 30% of the Bitcoin Punks. I have no idea if that's actually true or not, but he had mentioned that that over-the-counter trade, and this is just information that I've pulled from that tweet. He said in that over-the-counter trade, Cyrus's friend was supposed to be the seller to Ryan Carson, and then the Bitcoin Punks team front ran him, and they were involved in that Ryan Carson over-the-counter trade. No idea if it's true or not. I'm just quoting tweets that were on the interweb of NFT Twitter. But moving on to ordinals.market, which was run by the Bitcoin Punks team, and it's a pretty awesome website, I have to say. It's an aggregator that's been built on top of Emblem Vault. Very unique, very cool. It's really cool. Adam and I have been talking to the team about seeing these different aggregators pop up and built on top of Emblem. It's almost like a layer 2 or a layer 3. If you have Emblem that operates on top of OpenSea, and then you have these aggregators that operate on top of Emblem Vault that are pulling data between ordinals.market, you have pepe.wtf, and you have the NFT Relics Explorer. These communities are getting pretty solid. This is good. Once this popped up, there's no denying that once this ordinals.market popped up, the sales have definitely increased. So we do acknowledge that, and it's definitely a good long term for Emblem Vault, and for the community. Of course, I'm interested to see if this ends up becoming something more than just Bitcoin Punks and becomes some sort of tool, as it's called, ordinals.market. The site is pretty sleek. It's listing and verifying the Bitcoin Punks, because there was the issue in the beginning of the scam vaults and the scammers who go through their variety of tactics to trick people, which is very, very unfortunate. I'll dive that here in a second. But there's also a second aggregator that's popped up called ordinals.cheap, which was also built by somebody in the Bitcoin Punks community. It's a little bit more of a simplistic version than ordinals.market, but you can also purchase from here. It's just like a top-down approach that has the last sales, which also verifies everything. Adam, before I talk about some details, what are your thoughts about the ordinals.market and these aggregators that are popping up for ordinals?
I think it's completely necessary. If you look at what's available right now, I actually put out a tweet right before we came on of kind of different marketplaces that are available. It's super, super rudimentary. So these have to get better quick, because what happens is I mean, I went on one and it was like each ordinal was 1 Bitcoin and stuff. And it's like ordinal number 68,720 for 1 Bitcoin. And it's like, there's nothing here. Right. So having stuff in an organized fashion is critical. And I've already talked to artists, and we've talked to obviously teams and artists and stuff. How can they curate their collections? How can they, simplify for their collectors, make stuff safe for their collectors? Like, this is really important. And obviously we're in early days of ordinals, but this needs to be built. It just, the marketplace can't function kind of in this random happenstance, tweet and send me a DM and we'll OTC a trade. Like, it just can't work that way. Right. It just becomes super inefficient. And that's when you don't get proper price discovery, people getting wrecked, so encouraging, and we are definitely encouraging teams to kind of build this sort of stuff, at the base level, just for their own collectors. Right. So we'll see how it goes. I think even in a week, it's going to be much better than it is even today. And today, obviously, it's way better than it was a week ago. So it's ramping up quick for sure.
Yeah. If you're an ordinal community and you want to work with Emblem Vault, please reach out to us. We do want to work with you. We do have some priorities currently right now, which is infrastructure, scaling, and security. So some of the requests that we've been getting are just complete secondary, because our focus is literally Emblem's business is education and tooling. And so some of the accessories or some of the, additions that these teams want, we do want to work with you. We just have to get we have to get Emblem Vault completely safe and secure, and operational in terms to make it very simplistic and optimized. And so I'll cover that right now, actually. So I pulled up the tweet that we sent out. I believe this was Saturday night, February 12th. It said, Emblem Finance website throughput has been increased and optimized for more efficient scaling. So what happened was, at some point, I believe it was Friday night or Saturday morning, that whole weekend, dude, I slept like 3 hours. It was crazy. Emblem, the servers went down. And so we had to actually upgrade the back end. And we had to, I don't remember if we got like new service or what the case was, but the dev team had to scramble to get it going.
Devs were doing something back there.
Apparently, the Emblem system was hitting over 10 million API calls in 4 hours. So I don't know if that's a lot, but it sounds like a lot.
Well, it was like the with the API calls, like our old service was like 500,000 calls a day or something, and it would never even bump up against that. And that first night, I think like Shannon, our main dev, said, was like we had 1 million API calls in like an hour and a half or something like that. It was some crazy, number. He's getting pinged on his phone. We're turning off your service basically. So yeah, a bit of a scramble there to upgrade our entire system, which is great. It's like, no, we're in a better place now. But yeah, it took us down to kind of rebuild and come back stronger.
Yeah, I believe the system was down for about 12 hours, 18. Dude, it felt like 40 hours. It felt like days trying to answer these questions and trying to, hold back the rally and everything.
Just so everybody knows, down doesn't mean like any NFT that was already made and stuff could be traded. There was no problem there. It's just a matter of making new ones. New Emblem Vaults was totally off for 18 hours.
Yeah, so what happened was, when the server was down, you couldn't vault anything. And then this was simultaneously, the auto flagging system was down as well. So there was multiple things that were happening, and the metadata caching was down as well. So you couldn't update it. So you had this issue of like empty vaults that were happening. The flagging system was not catching it. And I think there was only about like 1,000 Bitcoin punks that were vaulted at the time. So it was definitely pure chaos. We were trying to manage it as best as we could. Just so people know, on Emblem Vault, and we knew it. I mean, even Leonidas had called it in Friday, as things were getting vaulted. He's like, "Man, this is going to be a war," because anytime there's a new project that pops up on Emblem Vault, dude, the fraudulent actors, they go through a tool of maneuvers. First, what they do is they'll just straight up just sell empty vaults, and so people start sweeping empty vaults, which is tough. Next maneuver they do is they start reproducing the same asset on Ethereum. And so
that's a confusing one for people. People don't get that one very often.
Yes. Yeah. So essentially what they'll do is they'll make Bitcoin Punk 2222, but they'll mint it on Ethereum. So it'll look the same, but it's an ETH asset. And so people start sweeping these. So we had to disable the Ethereum minting from that. And then what they were doing is they then started saying, oh, I'll just start inscribing the same asset, Bitcoin Punk 2222, but I'll just make it a new one, and I'll just mislabel it. So it's actually is Bitcoin Punk 222, but it might be the 4th or 5th or 7th copy of it that's sitting there. And if you're not paying attention and using these verification tools, then you're just going to go ahead and think it is. So we tried to tell people to really verify and be really ahead of this. And I think there was like 1 or 2 other things that they pulled out as well. Like they have literally just a fucking school book of things to do. The issue on the Emblem Vault end is that the Ordinal's Block Explorer is just not that functional. It just does not provide the information that we need. So when we were working with Bitcoin Punks at the time, when they started getting vaulted, they hadn't even finished minting out at the time. So they didn't even, it wasn't even a complete 10K at the time. And then they were discovering that there were multiple Bitcoin punks that had been minted before they had thought. So it really came down to like a trust me bro situation. It's kind of what it came down to, is like they provided us and we work with them saying, hey, these are the numbers that we can, that are the inscribed ones. You kind of have to trust us because the ordinals block explorers does not possess what we need to be able to, give it like a Bitcoin punks metadata tag, which you see with like rare Pepes and Spells of Genesis and all this different stuff. So ultimately what had happened is one of the community members spun up the verification tool, or .tools, where the users had to go match the Bitcoin address inside the vault to the Bitcoin address that displays on the ordinals block explorer. Unfortunately, not everyone was doing that. So that's where it led to some people purchasing fraudulent vaults. I mean, they're real assets, just not the ones that they're looking for, which also becomes like kind of a confusing situation as well. So this
Welcome
was
to NFTs, bro.
So this was all happening at the same time, and we're scrambling to get everything back together. Also combined with this, which is unique to Emblem Vault, I don't know why OpenSea does this. All the activity happens on OpenSea. OpenSea pings LooksRare's APIs to refresh. So anytime you refresh on LooksRare, it'll refresh on OpenSea about 10 seconds later. I don't know why OpenSea does this. It could be maybe they have an issue with Emblem Vault. Maybe they're just cutting costs where they can. But OpenSea is pinging off of LooksRare. So also trying to like tell people this as well. It's like, hey, you have to refresh on LooksRare, and people are just like, why? That doesn't make sense. Why would I refresh on LooksRare? I'm like, I don't know, man. This started.
We don't know why it works. It just works, bro.
We don't know. We don't know why either. This is just the way that it is. So I also had to put out the refreshing tweet about it to try to explain that. During this time, I also went into the Discord. The Discord is actually a community-owned Discord. It was created by Chill Billy and DC, who are community members. And so I had to go in there and kind of like repurpose everything. It's because it's interesting because Emblem Vault was originally created way back, right? The whole idea was conceived in 2016. It was first deployed in 2020. So you have two different communities. You have the Telegram community, which is like really just like the DeFi kind of community. And then you have the Discord community, which is mostly about NFTs. And so I had to go in there and like completely fix everything up and then post all of these like different tutorials that had happened, because we were still trying to figure out what's safe, what's a safe way to vault, what's a safe way to unvault, Sparrow Wallet, Ordinals Wallet, all these other ones, Bitcoin full nodes, right? So we're just trying to figure out everything on the go. BIP 3.9, which is what makes Emblem Vault wallet compatible with it, right? But of course, there's some sort of like Russian roulette type style gambling mechanism where if you send your ordinal to the wrong wallet, you could risk losing it. So there's just like all kinds of information. We did get some help. A gentleman named, I think it's Cermek, put out the first video on how to verify things. Poppy Vault put a guide out. Adam put a guide out. We had tweeted from the Emblem Vault account and with Sparrow Wallet. So ultimately, we got everything back up and running, and the server is now improved, even to the degree that if you go to emblem.finance, the newest tab actually works now. It did not work for quite a long time. So if you're ever interested, go to emblem.finance and click on newest and just watch. And it just like, you could just see the burring. You either do that or you go to recently created on OpenSea to see all the new vaults that are being created. So currently where we kind of stand today, and then I'll pass it over to you, Adam, or maybe or Dog, and then we'll go to Dogfather. Is right now we're rebuilding a specific security tool and flagging tool for ordinals. It's something Shan's been working on pretty good, and I have to say it actually looks pretty solid from the tooling that has been built between that. And then they're moving on, and then adding ordinal support. You'll probably see an ordinal specific address inside of the vault. So you'll see like the BTC/XCP/Omni. And then you'll see an additional one that says ordinal to try to reduce as much friction as possible to get that going. And then, of course, we have the curated collection stuff that's coming. But we are also have been approached by multiple ordinal teams who want their different collections, or they want help vaulting and minting and this stuff. So if you do have questions in your team, yeah, please reach out to us. We can help you set the metadata tag, right? If you provide us with, you know, the inscription numbers, your titles and descriptions, stuff like that, it's going to be easier for us. Could also be easier to just go to ordinals.market and maybe get a listing there, since they are built on top of it. Those are kind of the two options if you want to get onto EV right now. But our focus is definitely security and the infrastructure, and preventing those scams and getting the full support going. It's crazy. It's only been a week that this has all happened and everything.
Dude, I feel like all I've done is put out how-tos, man. And then like you do, like literally like one took me, I don't know, 10 hours to do some how-to. And it was like, and put it out. And then, you know, 10 minutes or 2 hours later, the guy comes up with a tool where it's like, oh, just check it at this tool. I was like, oh my God, thank God it's out. Right. But yeah, it's just educating people. And so many people are new to kind of, we're comfortable with this stuff because we're in historic NFTs, but so many newbies have no idea what even an emblem vault is or how any of this stuff works. It's kind of hilarious. I don't know. One tweet I put out, Leo had the best response, was like, consumer reports according to Adam McBride or something like that. It was so perfect. I don't know what I was doing. I was like, you know, comparing prices of ordinal minting sites or whatever.
Dude, that was an epic
but it's
thread.
like, dude, there's so much newness to it, right? Go ahead, Leo.
I was just saying that was an epic thread. Like, we need stuff like that. Like, there's 3 tools that are basically identical, and people are like, which one do I use? And like, your thread basically walked through like everything you would want to know. So it also keeps everybody in close competition, where they're going to be competitive with prices more if, you know, people are putting out tweets like that comparing it, because some people just don't pay attention to the fees and don't know there's other options.
Yeah.
Totally. Like, actually, though, one of those guys who was like the one I tried not to go too hard on him, but I made a video. It's like, dude, you can't even tell really what the pricing is. Like, and they immediately DM'd like, it's upgraded now. Could you please review it again? You know, so that's good. Like, just trying to, you know, keep people on their toes. And I think I said in that thread too, like Leo, just echoing what Leo just said, it's like, these guys are going to get hyper competitive, right? So that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Dogfire, you've had your hand up patiently. Thank you for waiting. I'm ready for whatever facts you're about to throw my way.
Yeah, man, thank you. Just coming back to eThought, about how much the team was actually minting and looking into the data. It's not that easy actually, but I recall a tweet by Leo on the February 8th, where he was saying that 900 Bitcoin punks were already minted at that point in time, and then I became aware of that. And if the team had already, let's say, 20% of the supply minted, I think they were pretty late doing so. Maybe they minted a few and then they were seeing this is going through the roof and they minted some more. But at least it was not a pre-mint of 20% and then people became aware. So I think you had a chance, maybe if you had a note and stuff like that. But I doubt this 20%. Maybe that's a bit of a fad. But that will be interesting to look at. But it's hard because you have these few, providers that were minting for, let's say, 80% of the space and then sending them out. So it's not so easy to disentangle. So maybe we never know. Then another thing that's pretty interesting and may also help in understanding why the Bitcoin punks community is that large is there are also subscriptions in the 20K to 25K range that were not the first, but maybe the second or third inscription for a Bitcoin punk, but they're not included in the actual collection. So maybe someone is spinning up a similar website saying it's Bitcoin punks I2 or V2, however they want to.
That's what I was like. Yeah. Literally, I said that in a couple spaces this week. I thought that was a really fun idea, actually.
Yeah, I mean, that will certainly come. Someone will spin it up. It's not that difficult, right? You just need to scroll to scrape through all inscriptions and then say, okay, if this is the second, then this is in this, collection. And then maybe it's trading at just 10% of what the other one is doing. So if you have an alien or, a hoodie or whatever kind of ape, hold tight to them, maybe there will be another collection. And then you're not talking about a 10K collection, but maybe a 20K collection. You can see this is something like a semi-fungible token, like the rare pappies, where you have not just have one-on-ones, but you have, 10, 20, 100, sometimes even 1,000 and so on. So maybe the second, third, or even the fifth of the Bitcoin punks may have some value one day. So keep them tight. You never know.
Don't
Then
keep them tight.
the
Pass them
last
over to Adam. I'm depositing my wallet address down below. What's up, Leo?
Exactly. Donate some.
Yeah, I was wondering, can I just take a minute to contextualize the kind of marketplace ecosystem right now for ordinals?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sweet. So yeah, obviously what we're talking about here is Emblem Vault, which is the /1 solution by volume. It's like basically, it's hard to say who's like winning in a market like this because we're a weekend, but you know, there was no, like it was 100% OTC when we did this show a week ago. There had been like one sale, I guess, on Emblem Vault, but essentially 100% OTC. And now a week later, there's a bunch of solutions that actually have gone live. And Emblem Vault is currently the #1 solution by volume for trading ordinals. So I just wanted to kind of point that out. And then I wanted to walk through the other kind of solutions so people understand the ecosystem. So you have Scarce.City, which has been selling rare Pepes, and that's a custodied solution. And they have an auction that they did that ended last night. And then they also have, it's basically like a custodied marketplace site. You can go to ord.city. That is a solution that is now live, and people are like selling multiple Bitcoin inscriptions on that. And then there is Ord Swap, which is the first trustless. It's an atomic swap on Bitcoin layer 1 solution. They take like a 3% fee, and that is now that is a live option. I'm not sure. I don't think they've seen a bunch of volume yet, but that is now live. And then you know, there's all these people building on these aggregators on top of Emblem Vault, and it'll be interesting to see, you know, how they build out in the Emblem Vault infrastructure. And I think there is an interesting opportunity for Emblem Vault here to kind of provide that middle layer that people don't even notice necessarily, and let people build on top all the solutions, just because it's a lot of work to build all of the user experience that's kind of needed, and everything's happening so fast. I do think there's an interesting opportunity for Emblem Vault to provide that layer in the middle that people don't even really necessarily know about, but they'll be buying on the OpenSea Ethereum side or on these marketplaces, not even knowing that it's Emblem Vaulted necessarily. And I think that's like an elegant solution, because the truth is, like, when you do describe Emblem Vault to a lot of people, you know, it is a little bit confusing. Like, it's this. The reality is it's basically a bridge of these assets. And they just want to be able to buy them easily. And I think it's an interesting opportunity to see if other people will build on top of Emblem Vault and basically just continue, keep this volume up basically for Emblem Vault, because I don't see it stopping anytime soon. And I see these sites adding more collections and just basically more people getting onboarded to Emblem Vault through all of these kind of people that are building in your ecosystem now. And lastly, I just want to read this. So this is just interesting. Like, these are the kind of things that I'm paying attention to. So this is a post of a job listing by Bitcoin Magazine that they posted yesterday. And I'm just going to read a little bit from it here. New advances in Bitcoin technology now make it possible to assign a specific provenance and rarity evaluation to individual Bitcoins on the Bitcoin blockchain. At Bitcoin Magazine, we believe this opens up exciting new opportunities for high net worth collectors looking to add unique rare Bitcoin to their portfolio, whose value may greatly exceed an individual Bitcoin. As OTC sales concierge lead, your goal will be to create an active marketplace around this opportunity and leverage Bitcoin's Inc.'s proprietary list of high net worth individuals and deep roster of industry contacts with access to rare Bitcoin. You'll own creating and fostering this marketplace, defining the product, and building out a team as the market expands. So this is just highlighting that, like,
Bro, Leo, are you looking for a job, man? Because this is right down our alley, man. This is like,
yeah. So basically, there's just a ton of this ecosystem of like Web3 and ordinals on Bitcoin is growing extremely fast. There's going to be lots of competition, and it's really interesting to see, you know, how things evolve. And like right now, Emblem Vault is like very clearly the winner by volume. And I think it'll be interesting to kind of check back every week here and just see, you know, and I don't know, basically see this whole thing evolve. Because I mean, I honestly would have never expected we'd have like 5 different working solutions, marketplaces since last week. So yeah, I mean, I'm very excited for it. I think, you know, we saw this all play out with Rare Pepes and Spells of Genesis. And even though there was a DEX on Bitcoin, you know, that liquidity and user experience over on Ethereum, like, ultimately did, you know, mean that the majority of volume was there. And I think there is definitely a chance that, you know, that could happen here as well. So I just wanted to contextualize the market there for people. And I think it'll be very interesting to see this whole ordinals market evolve, because there is going to be intense competition between a bunch of these platforms, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Leo, too, if you see any of the tweets, you could pin them to the top for everybody to go and look at. The issue, and some teams have come talking to us, is about this idea of like, should we use Emblem Vault or should we try to use one of these solutions? And it seems like the debating factor always comes down to this idea of like royalties. Of course, right? You beat this royalty conversation to death. It's been exacerbated over the bear market. But now you kind of look at these different solutions that you mentioned. The Bitcoin community is pretty hard anti-royalties. Also, I just don't know if it's functionally possible to build royalties into Bitcoin. I know from the DEX standpoint of Counterparty, it was just not possible to do. So we'll see if somebody comes up with a solution. That'll be pretty cool, right? So then it becomes this idea of like shared royalties with Emblem Vault, and that's something that we've been exploring through curated collections for quite a long time, right? And there's this idea of, you know, shared royalties for the Emblem Vault legacy collection. The issue with that is that it's a very generalized collection. That's why it's the legacy collection. The contract was deployed literally 2.5 years ago. So building on top of it has been the best option for now while we improve the infrastructure of it. And then maybe we can resort to it after, or even just start building curated collections for these ordinals. But the current infrastructure that exists for ordinals is just not possible to do a curated collection at the time. So the aggregators are the best option. But we do want to work with teams and, you know, maybe explore this idea of split royalties and stuff. It's just the infrastructure on Emblem side is not ready, and the infrastructure on the ordinal side is not ready. Also, from a team perspective, we have to do due diligence on these teams. Not going to offer split royalties to anonymous people, right? What if worst case scenario we offer split royalties and then it gets entangled in like money laundering and stuff like that. So it's quite
actually I'd love Leo's opinion on, like, for example, with the Bitcoin punks. This was something that occurred to me. Was obviously there are clear leaders in that community, but I mean, in theory, it's a community-led project. Like, how would you view that from, you know, an owner of these sort of projects, about like a couple of individuals basically getting a royalty on something like that? How would that seem to you?
So I have a kind of contrarian take maybe on royalties, and that is that, like, you know, if there isn't like this expectation up front that there was royalties involved with it, and like I even have this feeling about a lot of the rare pepes, to be honest. Like, I'm not a fan of like necessarily tacking on royalties like after the fact. Like, you kind of have this like unwritten agreement when the collection's released, and this is how it's going to be. And then I'm not a huge fan of like post all of that kind of, you know, expectation setting, then adding fees onto it. So if they were going to do fees, I think they should have probably said, like, we're going to be a centralized team running this project, and we're going to be doing, you know, fees, and we're going to try to work with marketplaces for fees. Like, my guess is like the opportunity here is to literally build an OpenSea like level kind of solution for ordinals. And yeah, to me, that's like a huge opportunity. And I don't necessarily think it's a competitive advantage to start adding royalties. Like, I think other marketplaces are not going to do that. Yep. And I think, yeah, that's just my take here is like, you kind of want to play game theory here and basically go for the big outcome. And then you can actually drive the conversation and really make the world whatever you want it to be, which maybe is royalties, maybe not. But at this moment in time, like, we're not starting from a place of any expectation around royalties. So my guess is, like, you know, in a world on Ethereum where the royalties are the expectation and we're moving in the other direction, if we're starting with no royalties, I highly doubt it's going to move in the direction of royalties when that's not the trend line.
Yeah. Yeah, good. Yeah, you've actually been pretty firm on that idea. It hasn't moved even with when you built that aggregator. That was kind of your similar take. So it's cool to see it, you know, to be instantiated. I did bring up the ordinal side that requested to come up. I just wanted to say hello. Without being too shilly, just tell us what's good about this ordinal side.
Hey, what's up? I just came on the space because I've been listening to you guys, and I just found out about the Emblem.finance, and I was trying to I'm just trying to understand it. It's connected to MetaMask, and I guess like I'm trying to list my collection on it. Can I do that? How does that work? If you can explain it to me very briefly, and I'll look into it more.
Yeah, sure.
That's possible.
No problem. Yeah, I'll also tag. I'll pin a tweet after I'm done talking here. So Emblem Vault is Adam and I work there. Some of the team members are in here as well. It allows you to trade NFTs across blockchains without a bridge. We just say bridge because that's what everyone's familiar with. What you're doing is if it's ordinal specific, you're sending your ordinal into a Bitcoin wallet, and the wallet is inside of a vault, or you could call it a sealed wallet that represents 15 different blockchains. So Emblem Vault has, I'm going to just name off a few: Bitcoin, Dogecoin, Ethereum, Stacks, Tezos, Namecoin, and a handful of others. So inside every single vault, there's private keys to all of those blockchains. And so you can send any type of asset to any of those blockchains, whether it's an NFT or a cryptocurrency. And so once you're done sending assets in there, or prior, you mint this vault, you turn the vault into a ERC-721 token that is storing the private keys to these 15 different blockchains. So those assets actually never leave Bitcoin, if we're talking ordinal specifically. But what exists on Ethereum is essentially the financial tooling, or the price exposure is kind of how I've been explaining it recently. That this is why some of the Bitcoiners and counterparty people have become a fan of Emblem Vault, because their assets never leave Bitcoin. And the only way to reveal the private keys is to burn the NFT, and then whoever burned the NFT can then see the private keys to then import it into their own wallet. There is some centralization to it, and we're very upfront about that because the technology is, it's new. There's literally no other competitors in this market. And if we do want to go full open source or full decentralization, we need to make sure that the technology is there. It's not there yet, and we're working on it to improve it. Because things like this, like ordinals, these kind of things happen. And if it is fully decentralized and open source, you're just not able to scale at the speed that you want to get everything up to speed. So if you shoot me a DM or Adam a DM, we can help walk you through. Also follow Emblem Vault on Twitter. And if you go into the Discord, there's all kinds of, we've set up a ordinal information side chat that has everything related to ordinals and Emblem Vault. There are some disclaimers. The technology from not just Emblem Vault, but the ordinal supported wallets and the ordinal block explorer. Between everything, it's just not everything is completely up to par and up to standards, but everyone's working as hard as they can to get everything where it needs to be. So you do definitely just need to do some research so that you're aware of what you're getting into. But Emblem Vault has become kind of like the de facto, as Leonidas mentioned, a leader with about 3,000 ETH in Bitcoin Punk sales since last Friday. And we have seen about 5 or 6 other collections make their way. There was a Japanese artist. I just
pinned it up top. I thought that was pretty funny and cool.
He started exploring it. We've seen some other collections. If you just go to emblem.finance and go to the newest tab, or go to OpenSea and go to recently created, you can see all of the different ordinal collections that are beginning to explore it. And we've also been reached out by a bunch of NFT PFP teams and NFT artists. So we're all kind of just like working at this together. So feel free to hop in the Discord and ask any more questions. We're more than open to answer any of them.
Yeah. Thank you for that explanation. I actually just found out about it, so I'm going to do my research and dig into it. It sounds pretty cool. So, and then go from there. Thank you so much.
No problem. Mifiko, you have your hand up. Haven't heard you speak today yet. So GMT, sir.
GM, good to be here. Good to hear this really interesting conversation around ordinals and what's been going on these past couple of weeks. It seems like, when we were speaking about open editions, that seems like, honestly, like 6 months ago. You know what I mean?
Dude, when was that? That was 2 years ago, bro.
Yeah, it's been crazy. The question I had was around, generally Bitcoin NFTs. And so so I think it was Chain Left or somebody or Jake or one of you that mentioned the number of ordinals that have been kind of inscriptions. The number of inscriptions now are more than the number of kind of I think it was the tokens on Counterparty. And so my question is around if we're talking about Bitcoin NFTs, do you see ordinals? Do you see a kind of convergence between ordinals and Counterparty kind of collectively in a Bitcoin community, and sort of the energy with ordinals spilling over into Counterparty? Or do you see these two ordinals kind of being a separate, distinct movement that kind of carries on, and that then captures sort of the narrative around that as a Bitcoin NFT, and Counterparty remains perhaps maybe misunderstood, given it has its own token, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I'll take this one first. Yeah, so it was Chain Left who tweeted that last night, and then I quote tweeted it. Yeah, there are now more inscriptions than the entire 9-year history of Counterparty tokens. I believe it's around like 120,000 is the number. Just looking at it objectively, Counterparty is much farther ahead in terms of an infrastructure. There's also more things you can do with it, right? There's sub assets. They have a working DEX. They have a working dispenser. There's a little bit more utility for it. I think people are more familiar with it. I have faith and trust that Counterparty is going to pull something out of right fields and add something that people are not going to be prepared for, but they are becoming more unified. I mean, you have Joe Looney, who created Rare Pepe Wallet. He already created, I forget what it was called, something.art, where you can basically, instead of using Arweave, you can store your Counterparty data as an ordinal. So they are becoming a little bit more meshed. But Joe and the Rare Pepe team, dude, they're very smart. I mean, Skrilla and all of them, they were people inscribing sub 1,000. Skrilla's even like sold a music one. They're going to find ways, especially with JDog too, they're going to find ways to commingle this and make sure that Counterparty is not going away. I don't think it's going to. I think even just more support when we launch curated collections. The Pepe community is large, and I think just because of that and Spells of Genesis being there, they're not going to be forgotten. But I have started seeing new Counterparty collections popping up. There was like a generative one that had existed, or at least getting more attention. I think it was called like Bitcoin Friends, which was like a generative punk collection on Counterparty from 2021. I started seeing some new experimentation of people dabbling between the Counterparty and ordinals. I'm not a dev, so I don't know like what else can be done. I know Counterparty has like one of the least amounts of lines of code between anything that exists on Bitcoin. And people like it because of the simplicity. But there's just so much culture that exists there. I just don't see it going away. What do you think, Adam? Adam, where'd you go?
Oh, I lost you for a second. I was actually trying to look because I wanted to share. There's a great exchange between like Joe Looney and Casey of like, Casey's like, those aren't inscriptions. And it's like the trolling that takes place even between like, hardcore Bitcoin guys. It's just, it's awesome, man. I was trying to find that tweet because I thought it was so awesome.
You're all good. Just keep looking for it. I saw somebody actually, who is it? Was it Frank that tweeted and said, "Win Doge inscriptions"? Do you know if this is possible? I saw somebody say that it is possible. You just have to create a new.
Dude, Doge Father was supposed to be on this, man. I'm ready. I got my Doge node spun up, ready to roll, bro. Doge Father, when does this happening, man?
Dog Father, what's good? Is this possible? What's your thoughts?
I think JDog was commenting about that. I mean, he has such a long to-do list. I don't know when this is coming, but certainly we have a look at it. And just to note something, on Doge Party, there are still more assets than we have inscriptions, because there are like 3 times more assets on Doge Party compared to Counterparty. Wow. Because it was just cheaper, I was just already want to say inscribe it on Doge Party, but these are the names on Doge Party. So that's interesting. I was also pinning a recent thread here in the Twitter space where you can see and find, you know, the website Joe was putting up. So right now you can basically inscribe whatever kind of counterparty asset you have, and then you can easily add that to your counterparty by using Joe Looney's website, which is basically just taking the ordinal ID from the ordinal.com website, encoded in base 64, then it's a bit shorter, and then you can put it in your counterparty the description, asset description. So then you have a combination of being on counterparty and having the counterparty name, and also, you know, maybe having a semi-fungible token, plus it's inscribed directly on Bitcoin. So maybe you have the best of both worlds. Let's see. So we already have close to 200 token on counterparty that were doing something like that, like combining inscriptions plus the counterparty assets. So let's see. It's super interesting. There are some people who are super open to that on counterparty, and some don't like it, you know, like always.
Yeah,
I actually just shared the tweet. Maybe Jake, you want to pull it up so people can see it who are watching the video. So basically, it's Joe Looney tweets out the first tradable Bitcoin inscription was 4 letters long, and what he's referring to is the test token, right? So it's TEST, test token. And Casey writes back, "Not an inscription!" exclamation point. And it goes into whatever. It actually, inscriptions refer to specifically inscribed sats. This would be an NFT if immutable, or digital artifact if immutable. And Joe writes back, "It's actually neither. It's an asset."
Gotta love the trolling. It never ends.
Great trolling, man, happening.
Let's talk about what happened yesterday. There was a clip. I pulled up Leonidas's tweet on the video. This clip art rock stored on Bitcoin sold for 90 grand. The bull market is back. I believe I also tweeted this, that Scarce.city had about 19 Bitcoin in sales across, I believe it was about 18 different collections. Leo, were you watching this of Scarce.city? Can you tell us a little bit about some of these assets on there? Because I don't know why an invisible brick is worth 0.75 Bitcoin, or why a copy of an Ether rock on Bitcoin is worth 9 grand.
Yeah, that was Joe's brick, by the way.
It's Joe's brick, man. It's not just any brick. It's Joe's bricks.
Look, I mean, this is an auction that was basically a bunch of low inscription numbers. So like 111. So the inscription number itself maybe is a little bit interesting there. It's obviously sub 1K, closer to even sub 100. And then it's literally just a TXT file with like the yen currency logo on it. That sold for 3.6 Bitcoin. So you're just seeing, the market very clearly vote that it cares a lot about inscription number, basically. Obviously, it's the whole thing with Ether Rock. It's the exact same thing. Everybody sees an Ether Rock tweet that says Ether Rock sells for $3 million. And then everybody who doesn't understand the historical NFT market, which is 99.999% of the world, doesn't understand the value of the Ether Rock, obviously has nothing to do with the image, and is about the 100 supply contract in 2017. And it's the same thing here. People see the brick. It's like, what the hell? It's like, nope, it's the inscription number. People are buying the inscription number. Of course, it's much funnier to not mention the inscription number aspect when you tweet.
Yeah.
It is interesting too how, that sale took place, and then within the same day, an Ether Rock sold as well for, I don't know what it was, 100 and what was it?
139.
139, yeah.
Yep, I pulled it up right here. Ether Rock 30 purchased for 139 Ethereum for $238,000.
Free. They're giving them away, bro.
Trade there,
the
guys.
floor. Leo, just go in and get like 10 of those bad boys, man.
Well, dude, the Bitcoin. So Rock Toshi traded an Ether Rock for a Bitcoin Rock. Okay, and that trade aged very well given this recent sale of the Ether Rock, right? So that was just an interesting trade in like a few days period that performed extremely well by Rock Toshi.
Apparently, Rock Toshi is not Skrilla from the Twitter, from the tweets that I've seen. I don't know what that meme is behind that, but my Twitter was flooded of Skrilla is not Rock Toshi. I don't know what's going on there, but
there's a Rock Toshi Jr. Jake. I want to know. I want to know who Rock. I'm pretty sure I know who. Yeah, I've talked to Rock Toshi some. I don't think it's somebody that we know. Rock Toshi Jr. I don't know. I don't know.
It's Leo's Anon account, second Anon account. Moving on, I also now have pulled up Wob from Sappy Seals. They launched their gamified free mint collection on Bitcoin. Anybody can participate. We'll release anything purely because of hype, but this mint fits perfectly and will kickstart the Sappy Seals universe. Apparently, they're issuing ETH NFTs that represent the inscription, where people can trade the exposure of it, and then at any time they can mint. Leo bought Sappy Seals, if I remember correctly. I don't know. Were you in contact with Wob about this? I just asked Leo again because it seems like you've been very intrigued by this recent inscription project, I guess, experiment. And right before I hand it off to you, an hour ago, it says, Wob tweeted, "We've spent over 7 million pixel," which is their fungible currency for Pixelverse, which is their game that they've been building, which seems like forever. I've been holding my Pixelverse things for literally centuries, and it's still not built. So Wob, please hurry up on that. We have spent over 7 million pixel to acquire a Super Bowl image to promote the Sappy Seals digital artifacts dropping on Bitcoin apparently tonight at 3 p.m. Eastern. Leo, what are your thoughts on this? And now as a new member of the Sappy Seals PFP community?
I mean, yeah, basically it was me just like intrigued by it would cost me like 1.2 ETH to kind of participate in this kind of fun thing. So yeah, I mean, basically I don't know anything else that isn't public, guys. But yeah, basically it's going to be an interactive kind of mint thing, like potentially scavenger hunt kind of thing. There's 101 of these. And yeah, basically I think as far as I can tell, they're going to create a collection on OpenSea. It'll have 101 pieces. And then they're going to have this website that opens up at 3 p.m. For Sappy Seals holders, I believe, that you'll basically be able to somehow go in there, and some people are going to be able to claim these somehow. And they say it's interactive, so I don't know exactly what that means. They're going to gamify it in some way, I would guess.
Yeah, these fucking engagement farmers.
And then what are you going to do? And then they just like going to bridge it probably or something? Like you got to lie.
Yeah, it's a voucher model.
Yeah, sorry.
Got it. It's the voucher model. So there's been a few collections who have done this, where basically they create the ETH NFT that represents the ordinal, which guarantees your mint on it. And I believe you have to like burn the ETH to get the ETH NFT to get the ordinal. Is that correct, Leo?
I mean, it's kind of the Emmercoin model. I'm
yeah, exactly.
Like, you've been doing this shit for a while, guys.
Yeah.
Nothing new
it's
here.
Just the same ideas spinning around and around again. Yeah,
correct.
Oh boy. Yeah. So interested to follow that. Yeah. I've been in contact with Wob about all that stuff. So pretty interesting. They seem very authentic about it. It does not feel like a cash grab, maybe an engagement grab, which is kind of what they do. So that'll be it. But moving on, we had a big announcement yesterday. Leo's going to be pissed. We're giving Rare Pepe artist royalties. We've been working on this for quite a long time, man, and it took a lot of coordination to do this. As a team at Emblem Vault, we felt like it was is necessary to reward those early pioneers of Rare Pepes and fake rares. It's been going on for quite a long time. With a share of the royalty pool, which will be on the curated collections, which will be bumping up to 5% total. So there will be a split between Emblem Vault and each individual artist of each individual card between that 5%. We had talked with many of the Pepe OGs and fake rare people on like, how do we get this done, right? Because the issue is like a lot of the Rare Pepe artists are anonymous. Some of them have like just been pretty much MIA since they created their card. So we had to figure out a way to not have scammers pretend to be the Pepe artist and then give us their address, and then they get perpetual royalties on this one random card that sells for 100 or 100 ETH or whatever the case is. So we came to the solution between the community that we're partnering with Pepe.WTF, which is the aggregator of Pepe, which is integrated Emblem Vault to it. We talked with Al, the founder, and basically it actually worked out pretty well. So Pepe.WTF, if you're an artist of a fake rare or a rare Pepe, I think up to today, they have a sign up for Rare Pepe and Fake Rare artists on the website, which actually was coordinated and went pretty well with Vincent Van Doe's Notable Pepes, which is pretty much his version of Rare Pepes and Fake Rares. And they were actually passing out Pepe checks, which is pretty similar to Meme ASF and Fake ASF for Rare Pepe and Fake Rare artists already. So it actually worked out pretty well that was happening. I believe they actually got a pretty large influx of signups from this. But if you are listening to this and you missed the deadline, if you want your share of royalties, you're going to have to get in contact on your own time with Pepe.WTF and verify with them. I believe you have to verify with an ETH and counterparty address to receive those royalties. Very, very excited.
And you get those amazing checks, apparently, big giant checks every time you get paid. That would be even cooler, right? You get a little NFT when they get paid. They get the check.
Right. I believe the check. So the check is you have to burn the check to put a card in the Notable Pepe. So it's a very similar model, right? Everything's a derivative of a derivative, especially in the Pepe market. Everything's literally freaking inception on its own. We got a lot of positive feedback for it. It's going to be fun to kind of install and roll this out, and we'll talk a little bit more about curated. Adam, what's your thought on this?
Yeah, it's funny. We talk about kind of in the business community, we talk about aligned incentives, right? And I think that this fits to some degree, and I think in a lot of ways it's similar to like what Curio did, where the artist got 1%, right, or whatever, and it's a small percentage, but it's something, and it can be significant over time to people's lives. And I think part of the birth of the NFT movement was kind of this idea of supporting artists, and I think certainly as a team we're happy to do that. Of course there are ways you trade on the DEX or whatever, and you can totally bypass these, of course, but I think for us and as a team, and just the way we wanted to move forward, is this idea of supporting artists at the core, and we hope it does that to a substantial degree, really. So yeah, we're pretty psyched about it.
Yeah, it's going to be the Pepe rollout, man, for curated collections is a much larger task than I had anticipated, with the coordination of getting the OGs on board, making sure you could coordinate it, right? Testing out this new technology, the migration portal, which is what we were working on before. And we had tested a few times before the ordinal stuff had popped up. Basically, what's going to happen if you have an Emblem Legacy vault, right? You have your Rare Pepe on Emblem Vault right now. There's going to be pretty much a two-click step where you basically, it's just like wrapping. If you're in the historical community, very familiar with this, you basically take that vault, you click migrate, it burns the legacy vault, takes the asset, puts it into the new curated collection, and then bam, you're there, right? You just have to pay the gas fee. Where we are going to be announcing pretty shortly, there's going to be some gamification and incentives and rewards for those who do participate in the onboarding of Rare Pepes and Spells of Genesis. They're actually going to probably roll out together at the same time. We felt we had an internal debate and discussion about both of these iconic collections, and we didn't want to take away legitimacy. They both are legendary within their own right, and so we felt that it was best to kind of roll them outside pretty much together because it is also a very similar community. And maybe it does take away from some of the concentrated volume, but these are some of the philosophical and kind of like reputational debates that we have to have, where you don't want to scorn or burn some of the communities and collections by preferential, and it's not that important in the long term, but I think like this type of authenticity is important, at least in my view, and like some of the debates that we have. So that'll be quite exciting for that. Also, one last update from Emblem Vault, actually a few. We did update the Namecoin auto renewal feature has been updated. Make sure that you refresh your vault on LooksRare. You can actually do a bulk refresh, which I posted, which was pretty cool. So you could just click all of them, press refresh, and do it. So auto renewal is absolutely functional. We even had R3 said it works perfectly. You guys rock. Updated my MCs assets with ease. That Namecoin stuff's been, man, it's been an issue. It's been
it definitely does work. Trust me, I was testing the functionality. It worked on a bunch of my vaults. So yes, it is functioning and quick too, actually.
It's quick. Yeah. Props to the Emblem team for getting that put together with some of the patches and new stuff that had to be deployed. Also, side note, the Polygon and BNB Emblem vaults, the vaulting is halted at the point. We have to get to it. But again, we have a long list of priorities. So you can safely trade those assets on BNB or your vaults on BNB and on Polygon. You just cannot vault them at the time being. We are very aware of this, and we will be getting to it. It's just it's on the task list. Man, it's going
to get pushed down. Anybody looking to vault Polygon right now is going to have to wait a little bit.
you're gonna have to wait a little bit. But moving on to some of our favorite, historical stuff, because we have been talking about ordinals and people are probably freaking tired of it. I'm a little bit tired of it, but it's fun. That's where the business is, and I do not think that riot is stopping. Mooncats had some updates this week. My favorite one, being a little biased here. I don't know if you guys saw Flip.xyz, which is Ledger Status's business, his NFT company. They did a write-up on Mooncats, and they actually had reached out to me for some information about it. It pretty much summarizes everything of Mooncats, the story of it. ETHord's actually even quoted in this. I don't know if you're aware of that. They quoted you from when you discovered it. Nice. Mooncats, March 12th, 2021. They had asked me kind of some stuff about Ponderware and about the community. They showed the Sotheby's pixelated accessory that I had Digivitar do. And they cover everything, man. It's a really, really good write-up. So I highly advise people to go look to that. And also simultaneously, we finally concluded the accessory vote for the fourth time now. So here's some stats from this accessory vote. 229 wallets with about 4,000 cats have voted. 22% wanted to keep accessories on. 77% wanted to keep them off. Participation, 15% of all cats voted, which is 4,000 out of 25,000. 16% of all eligible cats have voted so far. 3.4 of all eligible wallets voted. 229 wallets out of 6,804. This was only available for the acclimated wrapper, so the newest wrapper, and the unwrapped cats. It was not, if you own the unofficial wrapper, which discounts about 1,000 or so wallets, that was not eligible.
So what's going to be the impact of this?
Yeah, so this is the question. I mean, so Ponderware, they it's not owned by Ponderware anymore. It's owned by Pause and Midnight Lightning, who are now go by Mooncat Rescue. That's their LLC that they formed. They have a passive approach to it. They both had to go get IRL jobs after Ponderware dissolved. So Midnight works on it on his free time. They said it's on the list. I personally have no really idea what's going on. It seems like they are working. The reason why people wanted to remove the accessories is that they've been saying this for almost 2 years now at this point. I think that was deployed in July of 2021. That accessories causes confusion for the flippers, for the new collectors. And in order to get that peg off of 0.3 ETH, you need flippers to come in and provide liquidity and not get wrecked because they think that, the Superman cape on your Mooncat has increased the value by 2x, even though you can go buy it on the decentralized boutique market for, 0.01 ETH. And so this has been a contentious literally since the boutique was deployed almost 2 years ago. And this vote has happened before too. So will it be removed? I don't know. There is some complications because of like the things that Ponderware has built between their jump port staking contract, which deploys the cats to all the L2s, and the accessories that are used like in World Wide Web and some of these other games. But the idea of removing the accessories is just default accessories off on the marketplaces, not anything else. So what Ponderware has to do now is they have to go build a Mooncat API so that if any of these games want to use the accessories, then the games, which mostly uses accessories, has to ping off of Ponderware's API. But from the storefront perspective, everyone in the community wanted them clean, so that collectors could come in, or flippers, and value things appropriately.
So basically on OpenSea, all the cats are going to be stripped down cats. No glasses, no mech suits or anything like that, right? That's all going to disappear in theory when they turn that off.
Yep, that's the idea. They said that it's a little bit more complicated because the accessories are all on chain too. So and Mooncats are on chain. So I think there's some complications of how it's disabled. I think when they immediately disable it from everything while they build the API. But then they said that they had reached out to World Wide Web because that's where the accessories are used the most, right? The pixelated kind of metaverse that's pretty popular. And it did not seem like a World Wide Web was interested in using the APIs, probably because there's like a cost somewhere in there, or they have to set up and, get some contracts on there. So it's a little bit messy. When it's going to be removed, who really knows? But I guess that is finally coming.
When it finally does come and finally does happen, and Mooncats stay at the exact same price level, the level of disappointment in that Discord, I can't wait to go in there. And I hold a bunch of Mooncats, of course, like everybody, but just to go in there and be like, what do you know? It made no difference at all.
Oh man, dude, nobody has been more battle tested than the Mooncats community, man. I've been there literally since day one. I was a Mooncat moderator before I left it when we started working at Emblem Vault. And bro, that community has been contentious against each other for literally since its inception, right?
Bro, the reality is the cats are never going back to the moon. They were rescued from the moon. They cannot go back. They can't go back.
Oh, my
poor... That doesn't prevent us all from holding lots of cats. Cats are fine. But cats are going nowhere. Cats just stay where they are. That's what they are. It was to rescue them from the moon. They must never moon again. It's just
you need to be a rock or a brick to moon, apparently.
Yeah, right. We all love our beloved cats. My cat bags are very heavy, right? I sold them at Sotheby's, even, right?
Hey guys, I gotta bounce. Unfortunately, I gotta go. I got a family thing I gotta run to. But everybody, thanks for joining. I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, I'm hanging around, so make sure you guys still hang around. Adam, have a safe time, whatever you're doing in there. I'll be holding the show down. Yeah. So. I think it was VidPet put the Mooncat wiki together on Leo's NFT history, and I had a bunch of the top sales and a bunch of the top buys. So very conflicted with this decision. Leo, what's up? What are you thinking? I know you're a Genesis holder as well.
Well, I was just gonna see what Mofko had to say here, because I think Mofko, you've written the best write up on this like passive versus active management style for historical NFTs. And like, there's no project that embodies this kind of concept you created more than the kind of whole Ponderware Mooncat stuff. So I'm curious, Mofko, like what's your take on this? You've been the most vocal just about the larger topic there.
Fika, you there? Uh-oh. He's thinking.
You might be sleeping on the job, Jake.
I don't know, man. I mean, just thinking about Mooncats in general, anytime that there's a historical bull run, Mooncats are kind of leading it. I kind of call them like the Doge of historical NFTs. Once Mooncats pump, maybe because it's a large supply, maybe because there's some mimetic of value in there, then the money tends to trickle to the other projects. I actually have pretty strong conviction that whenever punks pump next, Mooncats are going to. They kind of punks, Mooncats, and Curio kind of all pump in unison. I think it was DCL Blogger had posted about this multiple times, and he also owns multiple Mooncats. He owns all of those collections, but he put a chart up where if you compare all those charts, they all move together. Maybe it's because they're around the same time, or whatever the case is. But punks have also been pretty stable. I think they're pretty stable around like 60 ETH or something like that. So I mean, I guess we'll see. I got some of the largest cat bags here between all of the rare ones. Mooncat 2878's got some large ones. VidPet's now got some large cat bags as well. So I guess we'll see from that. But moving on a little bit, and this isn't related to historical NFTs, but I found it kind of interesting. Right before this, NFT Nick, who runs the the NFT Morning Show, had announced that Fluff World is raising 700 million valuation and acquiring Cool Cats. So we're going to see another NFT acquisition. I believe this is going to be, this might be the first one since Yuga Labs, right? To acquire CryptoPunks IP. Curious if anyone has any thoughts about this. This tends to happen in all markets, not just NFTs. In the middle of a bear market, we start seeing consolidation. Cool Cats has gone through their issues, right? Their cat NFTs are just absolutely tainted, man. We are cursed, right? If you're a moon cat, a gutter cat, a cool cat, what's the I forget what the other one is, man, dude. They are tainted. Leo, what's your thoughts on this for some IP acquisitions?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So, like me personally, I'm like a CC0 maxi somewhat. So like, I think the IP stuff will be relevant for the next decade, but specifically, I think the entire point here is that like we have scarcity for like content now, so you don't necessarily need IP. That's kind of missing the point. So specifically around IP, like we live in this model where all of our heads are programmed to think, okay, the IP owner is somehow, this imbues them with magical powers when now we listen to what they say. And to me, it's like, once the original creator or the artist sells the IP, like I really could care less about what the new IP holder tells me is the real one or the fake one or any of this kind of stuff. It just has no meaning in my head. It's like, congratulations, you own a document issued by the US federal government saying you own the IP for XYZ, decentralized Web3 NFT community. Like that literally means nothing. I care about the original founders and artist voice. It has no meaning or weight in my head. And I think that's like probably the general trend will be people waking up to the new paradigm of like CC0 IP being less relevant in this space over the next decade. So my guess is in the long run, IP acquisitions don't age super well. I'm not saying that like, these companies can't do roll-ups and then sell to Meta or something and, have success. I just think that's kind of missing the big picture. In the short term, I think, yeah, it's awesome for Cool Cats. You're a Cool Cats holder, more or less the project has failed. I mean, I have that graphic of like basically two little like comic charts that I drew of like, historical NFTs. They kind of, have this intrinsic value. So they'll drop in value during a bear market, but there's like a plateau point where they reach this intrinsic value to collectors. And that's not necessarily the case when you're buying something like Cool Cats for 15 ETH or something. What you're buying is like, you're essentially like SEC, I hope isn't listening here. You're buying equity. You're buying equity in the founders and you're hoping they execute on basically a startup that they're creating. And if that startup fails, then you're kind of screwed and your equity goes to zero. And like, that's what a lot of these new minted projects are, whether we want to admit that or not. So yeah, I mean, that's a project that's based on founder execution. The founders failed and they're basically doing some sort of acqui-hire IP acquisition. And I think that's an awesome thing if you're a Cool Cat holder, because it means you now have a team that's a lot more, a lot higher chance they're going to be able to execute. And that's the entire like preface on buying one of these things is the team has to execute. Otherwise they're worthless. So it's a good thing for Cool Cats holders.
Yeah, you're kind of buying into the hype or the culture. I see most of these PFPs as pretty much just like Supreme type brands until they build something else, because they all kind of follow the same trends. It was the PFPs, then they were all trying to build a game, and then they all realized it's very tough to build a game. So now they're all kind of struggling to figure out like what's next. They all follow each other in unison, which is just very similar to just the pop culture markets. Every artist kind of comes out with something new. They all kind of follow each other and kind of struggle from there because they realize that pool is very small. And it's generally, especially in crypto and NFTs, the network effects are so compounding that if you're first through the door, you're generally the one who's gonna win that ball game. So I'm gonna follow it. I own some cool pet eggs, or the cool pets, which is just absolutely wrecked me, and values plummeted like 90%. So I'm definitely a loving bag holder to kind of see where this goes. I do want to end it on one final interesting component, which actually includes historical NFTs. It was Kazomo Medici's announcement of donating on-chain art from a collector to a museum, the largest digital fine art collection to enter a museum. 22 works of the Cosmo de Medici collection have been added to the permanent collection of the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. They have the CryptoPunks in there. I believe there was a Klee, one of the early generative projects. There's Claire Silver, Pinder Van Armen's part of it, Dmitry Cherniak's Ringers. It's interesting. I'd be curious whoever's on stage here with the historical knowledge. I'm starting to see people call some of these things that were donated historical, right? I saw people saying Dmitry Cherniak's Ringers are historical. Some of Claire Silver's stuff is historical. They were created in 2021. Leonidas got absolutely torn apart about a year ago for calling some stuff from 2020 historical.
Was Leo right? Leo was right.
Adam, you're right. The Doogies were part of the donation. Doogies.
I knew it. That's hilarious, man.
Oh boy, yeah. So I believe there was the 2019 generative collection. I'm gonna try to pull up some more information here. We'll hear Mafiko if you're here first. I'd be like to hear a professor and educator's perspective on historical NFTs from every year being donated to the LA Museum of Fine Art. What are your thoughts if you're here with us? All right. Mafiko is getting lunch. Ethord, what's your thoughts, man? As the person who found Mooncats and is forever tied to the historical community, what are your thoughts of the LACMA acquiring the largest collection of blockchain artworks so far?
Well, it's certainly nice to see. That's just kind of we all, I think all of us in this space know that this is coming, and there are certain pieces they've already sold on auction houses, and a lot of these artists are just gaining more and more of a following and a reputation. So at this point, I think we said this a couple years ago. There's no hard line where you draw where what's going to be historical. And if you can go back in time with art, it's not just the early caveman paintings are considered the greatest art of all time, and then you stop there. So as far as I'm concerned, we're going to keep growing. There's going to be new stuff that pushes boundaries, and rarity is always going to play a part. And you're going to have certain collections with these intricate stories, and that's going to drive value and interest. And I don't think it just stops here, even though, every year we get exponentially more collections, but we know 99.99% of these are going to zero, and there's going to be special standouts as we continue. And, imagine 5 years from now, Banksy drops his first NFT. You think that's going to be worth zero? No. You think that could be considered historic in 50 years from now? Absolutely. So we'll see how it keeps going. But that's not going to stop the early stuff, the 2016s. And, I think Mafiko, who, is enjoying his lunch or whatever, but I think he said it a while ago in some tweet threads. There's multi pieces that create, when added together, what add value. And, for me, I look at something like Spells of Genesis, and it checks so many boxes in both collectibles and artwork. And that's why I have a fairly decent sized bag in that. Obviously, Mooncats mean a lot to me. I'd love to own a CryptoPunk one day, but we haven't seen the end of it.
But my question is, like, does this even matter? Have you been to a museum recently? Like, I can't tell you the last time I've been into a museum. I live in Las Vegas. There's 4,000 different museums. I'm not hanging out in a museum. I'm hanging out in my room, flipping JPEGs. But then also the people who go to museums, will they even care? Or is this all just some sort of like a theater, and pretty much just like what happens in the traditional art world, where you're kind of just like anointing these projects to put them, in the upper echelon, to kind of give them a little bit more social status. And it's a little bit more cliche than it actually matters most. Leo, what do you think, as somebody who owns like one of the best historical NFT collections, going to a traditional museum, does it matter at all?
So my take is that the absolute best way to display digital art, specifically tokenized digital art, is in a digital environment. in the metaverse, more or less. Like that is the most appropriate way to do it. That said, you know, I do think museums are actually very relevant. I think, you know, literally millions of people go to MoMA and these various museums every year, and they do like really enjoy getting to go experience that art close up like that. It is a little different when it's like a digital piece. So I'm very curious to see where the ball lands on like, how are we going to represent these things in a physical environment, which they're really honestly just not made for. So yeah, I think it'll be really interesting. I think it's very good for essentially from just like a pure like kind of financial perspective. There's a lot of liquidity in the traditional fine art markets, and that's obviously a massive market. And you know, those people do weigh these things like a lot. Like this is a huge deal for them. And yeah, like, you know, we saw the auctions at Sotheby's and Christie's and stuff, and like that's a great step. But you know, MoMA announcing their fund, they're going to sell some like Picassos to buy some NFTs, some crypto art, and then this, like, these are big institutions basically saying like, yes, we do think there is something here, and it's very possible that they had not done that. And their vote of confidence does mean a lot to this like group of buyers of fine art. So yeah, I mean, I ultimately think good thing. I do, the kind of gossip I heard was that it was like, to me, this is hilarious, but it was like slightly contentious inside of that museum whether to actually accept this or not. It's like, if it was me, it's like, dude, you're giving me millions of dollars of like pretty sick crypto art. I mean, are you kidding me? You're not going to just like at least take it and put it in your like storage or something. But yeah, I mean, I think it's cool that you're going to be able to go, and they'll probably have a really neat digital art exhibit in LA. And that'll be a fun destination for, you know, crypto art people to go to. And yeah, I mean, it's you never want to be the Bitcoin maxi saying that like everybody has to like eat steak and, you know, be a libertarian, otherwise fuck off. Like, I don't want us to be like that. Like, you're going to have to bridge to 8 billion people somehow. And, you know, this is just continuing to bridge out, and that's a positive thing.
Okay, Mafiko's back from lunch. Give us the academia take as somebody who lives in the world of education.
Yeah, man, this is a really interesting. It is a really interesting question. And sorry, Jake, did you ask? Did you call for me or something? I actually passed out, bro. It's like 3:30 a.m. over here. So you may have called my name, but I literally just woke up again. My bad.
You're good, dude. Holy crap, dude. Appreciate you for even being here. Yeah, give us the academia take on this. Does it matter?
Yeah. So a couple of things. So I think ultimately, so when people think about like blockchain or blockchain art, and even the historical thesis, one of the main critiques people come up with is say, well, you know, in the traditional art world, like no one cares if like Picasso's work when he was like, I don't know, his first early works are not really as valued as his later works. And that's often a critique that people come up with. But I remember a conversation with, and actually Leo posted this, and I went back to it a couple of days ago, between Punk 4156 and Punk 6529, where Punk 4156 is talking about actually, but the thing that is different with blockchain is that timestamps are a core part of the medium. And in that we've never had confidence in terms of really being able to say how many canvases are out there, how many, to definitively calculate the amount of canvases in the world.
Whereas, I really wanting to come and fuck some white women. I want to go to Russia. I want to fuck the hooker. I want to suck the pink Slavic pussy. My name is Kadanshan Bantu. I really wanted to fuck.
Wow, what a sideshow! Oh my god! Man. Oh my god! We're just making sure that you're awake, Mafiko. Sorry, we had to do that.
I tell you now, man, I'm well awake now.
Oh boy, dude! It's always a gamble letting some of these randos up on stage. But you know what? I'm a gambling man. I live in Vegas. Let's go. So yeah, continue. Sorry.
No, so good. So yeah, so the fact that, you know, the timestamps are a core part of the medium, and so I really do think that matters, and that's what makes like blockchain art distinct and unique, and why museums, MoMA, etc., are starting to kind of gravitate towards it. The point Leo made around yeah, aesthetically, right? There's always going to be this thing where people, especially these museums, are going to go like, what is fine art? What is high art? And, you know, a piece by Picasso from the 17th century compared to, you know, a CryptoPunk, there's going to be just this implied or implicit kind of like the physical, the physical painting is going to be for these institutions anyway. Then maybe some people go like, no, that is high art. That is more premium than a punk. Maybe some of these reservations around, do we accept this donation or not? But I think certainly we'll see more and more museums coming across it. My academic take as well would be, we need to increasingly distinguish between digital, like blockchain, like art, digital art, and also like digital collectibles, and how we're discussing these things and making determinations around like valuations, and also the importance of provenance, and how people are engaging with different pieces. It becomes really hard, obviously. Think about punks, and punks are collectibles, but they're all art. But I think the question for all of us is, with any NFT, is like, what is the dominant frame in which we're evaluating, we're thinking about the particular piece. And I think that there is an important distinction between the two, and it's an important distinction when we speak about, you know, how these museums will perceive particular collections over time, and also how value will accrue to particular collections over time.
You know, that's actually a pretty interesting distinction that you just made, that I realized is that as you're speaking, when you go to museums, most of it is fine art and sculptures. You don't see any collectibles. And so I guess this is maybe the community trying to make that transition of punks from collectibles to fine art, and putting it in a place where it's only fine art, or it's dominated by fine art, I should say, maybe helps the real world view it as fine art, whereas the NFT community views it as just a collectible. Maybe some view it as fine art, but maybe that's the primary motivating factor behind this. Dogfather has had his hand up. What are your thoughts on the museums taking over the JPEGs?
I think it's a big deal, really, honestly. That's a big deal. And it's telling a lot about, you know, the focus on digital collectibles, because these museums are also kind of like gatekeepers. Whatever they show is considered something valuable, and maybe even fine art one day, because it's fine digital art, you know. Like the first time a Warhol was put into such a museum, this is like putting a brand on you. It's like, okay, this is MoMA approved or whatnot museum. We had a similar move for a top European museum, the Centre Pompidou in Paris. They also have a bunch of NFTs, including a CryptoPunk. I think this is opening up these type of collectibles to a whole different set of people, like more elderly people, maybe, who are not going into the On Cyber Gallery, but they go into, you know, the Louvre and the MoMA and the like. Also to kids, you know, I have kids. We go to museums all the time. I mean, these are the collectors of the future. They see that in the museum and they're like, wow, that's cool. What's that? You know, teach them early. So I think this is remarkable.
Yeah, maybe it's the next step for the NFT community. As first we got our loving non-fungible tokens into the auction houses of Christie's and Sotheby's, which did not go too well. I'm going to be completely honest. We had a bunch of big sales, but the results were not what we expected. Maybe we're just thinking a little bit too much, but it did add a little bit of legitimacy. I mean, even when I got to sell the Mooncats at Sotheby's, I did have a massive impact on my personal growth and for Mooncats as well. So I guess we're just testing out different ways to move out of just being this speculative collectible bubble. I did bring 3 on stage, who is the PhD architect researching Web3. He's got a YouTube channel. What's on your mind? Welcome to the stage.
Oh, thank you so much, Jake. Appreciate the conversation. So I can share a small experience. Like I've been experimenting with 3D environments and creating VR environments in the last couple of months using one of these metaverse services where you can just upload your the file, the 3D file. And I must say, like, there is really a lot of potential in creating these VR environments where the regular laws of physics do not comply. What I notice in general in the 3D design of VR spaces for now is that they resemble reality in a way, and I just think there is so much potential in actually bringing all these NFTs into some new experience by actually making kind of experimenting with architectural spaces of the metaverse. So yeah, I mean, I posted in a comment just one experiment where I designed like spiral staircase, and then by going through the spiral staircase, you actually are going through the gallery, for example. So I'm just like, I don't know if anyone else here is interested in these kind of conversations, but I'm kind of struggling to find a community of architects within this Web3 community, and yeah, thank you. I mean, if you don't mind, I can stay here and talk more about stuff, but that should be it for now.
Cool, man. Yeah, you can hang out. If anyone else wants to come on stage, we're just having some open conversations. Yeah, I was wondering where you're going with that for a second, but it actually makes complete sense too. You're kind of integrating the metaverse type applications, as you said, like the 3D things that you could build through NFTs, and then displaying it in real world architecture, which could be phenomenal. So I don't think there's been that much of that kind of like commingling or that intersection. I believe you could probably do some pretty interesting things now I'm thinking about it, where you could take some sort of beautiful artistic creation of an NFT, you know, that's a GIF or an MP4 file, and then put it into something like the Louvre where you've been. That place it's massive, right? And you could put it next to some sort of ancient sculpture or some sort of, or like a Picasso, right? And you could put the Pepe Picasso right next to it, that has some sort of like interaction with the physical piece. So there is actually a lot of exploration there I had not thought about. So thank you for introducing that idea to the group. Big Mac has his hand up. Welcome, or was it Big Mac Sauce? Welcome to the stage.
Yo, man, what's good? How are you?
What's good, bro? What's on your mind?
Hey, so I guess just going off of the value of fine art and kind of tying that together with like the digital world. One of the things I was just thinking about, like the top of my head, is like when we look back into like real art, the art that's already in museums. Like for example, artists like Johannes Vermeer, Picasso, Van Gogh, Michelangelo, etc. I feel like a lot of their art pieces and what gives them value have sort of kind of personal feelings / events / kind of raw emotions portrayed into them. And then when I start thinking about, okay, well, we're going to digital now, right? How do we distinguish what's fine art in the digital world? Is it based off of financial value, or is it based off the story that comes out of it?
Yeah, it's actually a pretty good idea, right? The floor price is not all fully inclusive of the value of it, because you are missing the intellectual capital from it, the social capital, the cultural capital. There's so many things that are intertwined within an NFT that are not exuded just through the floor price or the exclamation when crowd who comes into Discord and just wants to know when and floor and all these different things. It kind of gets remissed, and we see this with NFTs and people's. They put a higher value on these like decentralized identity tokens, like your PFP, which is your avatar, and then you have your ENS or whichever service you use. Like mine is the .bit from Namecoin, which is then your decentralized name. So these people put higher values on because there's that social tie from whatever it is. Maybe it's nostalgia, maybe you just like the aesthetic. So that is being explored. Maybe that is being explored even further as they are brought into the different museums. Quite interesting. Three, he's got his hand up. Would you like to add to this?
Yeah, regarding what is fine art and evaluating something as art. I mean, primarily it's, when like most of the things that we see are visuals, and I think like generally like classifying something as art, it goes back into the context of art history and theory of aesthetics, which are, I mean, regardless if we want or no, these are like two disciplines that are being explored throughout millennia and are given so much care. And it's not just because it's necessary, but there is science in studying art actually, because throughout all these millennia, since the cave paintings, and then the Greeks, and then the Renaissance, and then we have like contemporary postmodernism, which is like everything together. There are, you can by studying art you can understand certain rules that survive throughout time, and I think, at least from what I researched, and kind of my conclusion is that in order to really know if something is fine art, you need time. But if you want to make fine art, the art needs to be really like deeply studied together with philosophy and something. And in this case, this is like the most secure way to make sure what you produce will kind of remain. I don't know if that makes sense, and I would just say I just recently found a book by Tolstoy, What is Art? And you can, I think, very easily find it on it's in English and through Google. It's a PDF, and just a recommendation.
Right. Art is largely defined by scarcity and provenance, which is also a pretty huge component to the historical NFT space that the Us on Stage hangs out in. This is the interlude to, actually, I pinned to the top here. I post a historical NFT essay every month. This month was about the transition of provenance. I don't know if anyone up here had the opportunity to read it. I did use Mafiko's historical NFT evaluation criteria as reference for this. But this basically, I guess you could say, it explores the idea of how provenance has changed over time. And there was like a few different things that I had noticed going into, and it's kind of like a very like kind of out there thought piece. When you think about exploring provenance in the early days of civilization, civilization started with non-fungible items. You started with food and collecting rocks and homes and caves. And then fungibility wasn't introduced until much later, right? Until some of the earliest seashell exchanges and creating value. And so that's the physical world. And then once you move into the internet world or the internet age, it becomes much closer. We started out again with this idea of non-fungibility on the internet with websites and different types of pieces on the internet in the early 80s. And then the idea of smart contracts were introduced, and people began starting to experiment with digital, digital currencies. 1989 is when David Chaum released DigiCash. I found it quite interesting, actually, that the tokenized world, right, which is just crypto, actually started in reverse. We started with fungibility first with Bitcoin, and then NFTs came about 2 years later with Namecoin. And so the idea of provenance has kind of changed because we were able to assign value to it immediately, where the difference beforehand was that with NFTs, there wasn't a way to really evaluate outside of some of the other capitalistic things that I discussed, like social capital, cultural value, cultural capital, intellectual capital. So I believe now we explore provenance a little bit different, especially because the tools have changed over time. As we, in the physical world, when you explore this idea of provenance, you use different tools like documentary evidence, physical examination, scientific analysis, historical research, expert opinions. And then when you go explore the internet for provenance, you use digital signatures, timestamps, digital watermarks, and hash functions. And once you get to the crypto world, a lot of that's eliminated, and you just have smart contracts and token provenance, because you could just go onto Etherscan and look at some of the data for it. So I believe now, if you hang out in the historical NFT world, we have a criteria of different provenance that assigns value because we have that measurement, which is Mafiko's historical NFT valuation criteria, which he did an amazing write-up on. And we use these tools of assigning value to what is fine art and different art pieces, which is inclusive of mint date, intersections, contract date, management style, innovation, the narrative, and the community. And this kind of pie graph continually changes depending on kind of who's valuing these historical assets, as we mentioned, that were being introduced into this museum. So these are the kind of ideas that I think about a lot, as now we've been in this historical NFT narrative for about 2 years when the NFT archaeology had started. But now we're starting to see newer collections like 2021, like Dmitry Cherniak, and some of these early art block collections are starting to be called historical because the idea of provenance and the meaning of what's fine art is continually changing. So I don't know if anyone up here has kind of a thought on it. I'd like to go to Mafiko. I don't know if you had a chance to read this or if you're awake because it's so early in the morning. Have you thought about this at all? Did you get to read it? And thank you for also putting out this historical NFT evaluation criteria. It's been a great tool to reference.
Pleasure, man. Yeah, I'm definitely wide awake since the recent introduction. I had a chance to read your article, man, and you did a great job really delving into these differences between provenance from the traditional art world to where we are now with NFTs, and really astute observation around. We started with fungibility in NFTs, and then we've kind of gotten into non-fungibility, which I think there's deeper nuance there as well in terms of what that means for the future of our space and how we continue to evolve. My thinking on this as it pertains to provenance is when I joined this space, the historical NFT space, there were slight conversations around the differences between mint date, a contract, the contract mint date, and then also the mint date of particular or specific NFTs. But I think that conversation has grown louder, especially as we've seen kind of valuations of different NFTs differing based on the specific mint date of the NFT itself. So at the back end of that article of your tweet thread, I think actually I discussed that pyramid there with Leo at one point or another, and I was really just trying to delve into some of the nuances in the historical NFT space. So we have old contracts, we have old NFTs and old contracts, but we also have old contracts with newer mints and newer NFTs. And then other things kind of happening where, images have been added on retrospectively, or communities have kind of come together and curated particular collections retrospectively. And so just trying to get a sense of what is, and this was not a pyramid around valuations per se, but it was more so around what is, in terms of the scarcity of those different approaches, what is actually scarce. And in my view, old contracts, old NFTs, that seems to be actually the scarcest kind of approach or type of project we have in the historical NFT space. And then on the very bottom of the pyramid, I guess you could say projects where we've had more curation that's happened retrospectively, being a more common approach that we have now. But certainly, I would say the provenance in our space, and this comes back to what I was saying before around digital art versus digital collectibles. I think when we talk about art, I mean, then there's curators involved. There's a bit of social consensus that needs to happen in terms of what is deemed legitimate or not. But if we purely focus on collectibles, then provenance, I think, has an outweighed or outsized role. And the tools that we have, I mean, are really superior. And we can then start to really delve into some of these nuances around old contract, old NFT, etc.
It'll be really interesting to see. Excuse me, been talking for 2 hours already. it'll be interesting to see how it's interpreted in museums. Like, how do you communicate that type of message if you're looking at a mooncat inside of the LA County Museum of saying, hey, you know, this contract was deployed on August 10th, 2017, but this specific one was deployed on or minted in 2020, where there was only 3 supply, and you have all of these different cultural nuances and specific first, which are only expressed at the smart contract level. How do you express that and communicate that through a mooncat hanging on the wall? Leonidas, I'm excited to hear what your opinion is on this.
Yeah, I mean, everybody knows I have like a somewhat interesting opinion here. Like, I'm definitely more of a when was the art put into the world type thing. I care a little less about like when a specific ownership of tokens was assigned. And this is specifically like referring to like just like, I don't know, like Pixel Map, for example. Like, Pixel Map is technically minted in 2016. There's a 1-line code difference that makes that the case. And I find it extremely hard to believe that like a mature market is going to honestly care and assign a huge premium because Ken decided to implement that like single line of code to basically assign the ownership of all the tokens to the like 000 wallet address. Like, I just like, okay, it's neat. It's cool, I guess, that they like had ownership and weren't just like in the ether. They were all assigned to this wallet. But to me, it's like, I don't know. I fail to see why, as a collector, I would care that much that Ken added that 1 line of code and why that would like triple the value of the asset. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, this is for those that are unaware, there's been an ongoing debate and battle. It actually caused a huge severance within the community, this idea of timestamp maximalists versus and kind of like contract purists, I guess, in a sense, versus those who kind of explore this idea of cultural significance and innovation and like some of the other things that sit on the pie graph outside of just the ones who believe in just scarcity times timestamp that increases the value by drastic amounts. Before I call on everyone, yeah, I used to actually be in that camp. I used to be what they call the vintage NFT maxi, who only cares about the timestamp and the scarcity. I've actually come much farther to the middle and realize that there are many other components that collectors use in their toolbox to value assets, and none of them are going to be completely the same. I collect mooncats that were named in 2017. Does anyone else care about that? No, but I care about it. I think it's cool. I think that somebody else, you know, kind of assigned their own personality to it, and that you could go back in time and kind of find these kind of cool, unique things. I put a high preference on, but the market currently does not put a preference on it. But to me, as a collector, it just does not really matter, because that's kind of like what I care about the most in that kind of idea. So just eluding that, we're going to go number 3 first, and then we'll go Mafiko and Big Mac.
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate that what you wrote about this, like this historical NFT, the thread, and you know, taking the parameters and really trying to evaluate the, you know, the value of NFTs from that point of view. I would like to ask you what, because I was thinking a lot. I mean, you know, even like, because design itself is very related to innovation and you know, providing new experiences. So if we just take, for example, the NFT art, which is common right now, and this is pure like visual art. There is this level of psychology in the sense of the eye, how eye works and how our brain works, and the aspect of art being able to help us transcend you know, these psychological barriers or limits, or just have some completely new experiences. I mean, you're just making really good points about this the value of art from the perspective of the tech, of the technology that is involved, and the value of art within the context of visual aesthetics. And I must say, like most of the art that is related to tech kind of a, maybe doesn't even need a visual in a way. It can be represented just as a code, for example. And I mean, is there a clear line between these two, or you think it's saturated?
So you're actually completely right. Yeah, there's value in the technology. There's value in the aesthetic and how it's displayed visually. There's value in the culture. For those that hang out in the PFP community, I think the value in the culture is much more important than the value of what your ape looks like. Whereas in the historical community, right, the value is in the tech, kind of in the narrative as well. So you do assign these different applications depending on the different communities that you're in. I'm sure the photography NFT spaces probably assigns a different value on different things, and they probably care less about the timestamp and probably care more about the setting and the image and all of these different applications. I don't think it's as much like of a crowded space. There does become a time though where there's a lot of contention, where you have too many chiefs in the room who want to basically say that your NFT is not historical because I say that it's not historical. That this kind of idea is definitely very consistent within the space, or the reason, or like, let's say somebody's pie graph is a little bit different of how they value things, and so they basically put down and say that, you know, your NFT is not valuable because the provenance of the UTXO on that model that I use for Ethereum is not the same for Namecoin. So therefore my model supersedes how you view things. And yeah, it's just common mental gymnastics that we play in the historical NFT community, which is why I hang out, because it is definitely my favorite game of mental gymnastics. Mafiko's had his hand up patiently. What's your mind on it?
Yeah, so as you're talking about, you know, this sort of timestamp maximalists, in the latest version, and I'm looking at it now of my pie graph, I have contract date and mint date at 10% of the total of that pie chart. So to me, it is a important criteria for sure to have a look at, and to as a core foundation of kind of then evaluating different NFTs. But certainly, I mean, when we talk about other things around innovation and the story and cultural relevance and aesthetic and management style, all these things also come into play and are all increasingly important. To Leo's point, whether or not in the future people will go into this level of detail and value will be assigned based on these specifics and these nuances we're discussing, I'd be curious to, and I don't know the answer to this, maybe someone here on stage knows, if a premium is placed on sort of traditional pieces of artwork that aren't not refurbished or touched up in a way, because I would guess my view would be perhaps when we talk about adding images retrospectively, or we talk about curating collections retrospectively, although that happens in the traditional world too, perhaps that is the sort of NFT version of a modification being made to a traditional painting. And maybe down the line, as the market matures, we may see, you know, people kind of being, oh, well, we're looking for the unvarnished or something of that nature. But generally speaking, I mean, timestamps, if it's an early timestamp, it's an early timestamp. Old contracts are great. If a new NFT on an old contract, for me personally, I'm still very interested in. Ultimately, yeah, contract date and mint date form a smaller part of the overall pie for me and how I perceive things.
Yeah, and the pie graph is continually changing as well. It's changed for me. I know it's changed for many. It's just, you just can't completely impart it. You just got to present the information and kind of let people think on it. Because my mind's constantly changing. Even as I put out these new essays and put out and do more research for all of these different ones, I come across new information presented, and because of that new information that's introduced, you can't be stuck in your ways, because man, the tokenized information's there. It's not going to change. So I'm gonna call on Big Mac, and then we're gonna go to Otto Hurst next.
Hey, this is just kind of a question for Leonidas, kind of going from what people are talking about here. So I listened to one of your spaces previously back, and I remember you talking about Kevin McCoy's quantum piece, like one of the first ever NFTs, and kind of the issues surrounding it due to the I think you said the domain or something in that realm basically expired, and the original person that had owned it no longer in theory owned it. Is something like that considered like less valuable now because obviously the first person that did register it no longer registers that certain NFT?
I think the market's pretty clearly. So here's the deal. It's ultimately, if we're talking about the financial aspect, it is the market that decides this stuff. And, you know, in crypto, it's like, okay, which is the real Bitcoin? There's been many forks of Bitcoin. You know, Bitcoin Cash has a lower market cap than the current, what we call Bitcoin. And therefore, the real one is Bitcoin. And I imagine we'll use kind of a similar measuring stick here. You know, if people value the silly tuna, the piece that silly tuna holds, the new mint, the migrated, whatever you want to call it, more than the original, then that's the real one. And if people value the basically expired token that was then kind of reclaimed by early NFT, he's the guy who claimed it, then that's the real one. That's essentially the metric I'll go by. And like for the V1 and V2 CryptoPunks, I'll call the V2 contract CryptoPunks as long as they have a higher market cap. So this stuff is disputed, and the answer is definitely, in my opinion, not to say that, you know, this is right and this is wrong. I personally believe in the on-chain kind of provenance aspect, and I do think there's a stronger argument to say that this piece expired. The actual like ID associated with that image is the token, not the UTXO, and then that provenance does live on with that unique identifier. I think that's a stronger argument than, hey, we reminted completely on a new chain. So I think that's how like this plays out in the future, but I could be wrong. And I certainly wouldn't tell somebody who, you know, believes the other way that, hey, like the artist believes it expired and the artist's voice is saying, this is the new real one. And you're totally free to believe that as well. And the market ultimately decides this stuff. So I think it's just being tolerant of multiple opinions because like none of this is clear cut. And what I don't like to see is people kind of basically saying there's the only one way. And of course, there's not only one way. The market's literally saying there's multiple ways. There's two claims, and that's going to be disputed and settled by the market. So yeah, not a fan of the, you know, I'm right, you're wrong when there's a nuanced conversation like this.
Yeah, absolutely well put. Namecoin is just one of the few different blockchains that follows different parameters. Example, another one is Counterparty, where some of the rare Pepes actually have quote unquote broken links where the image is not associated with the original token. But that community doesn't care. They don't care. They know that what it was originally used for. There's the provenance, the trading history behind it. And the community has decided that's what they're going to continually go with, of this idea of the token is the art and not the image is the art. Whereas Namecoin is the community decides that the registry is the art, or the chain of ownership, I guess is the more technical way to put it. So you kind of got to dabble on these different blockchains and really just put your history, put your thinking cap on and kind of explore it and know that there's not just one size fits all. I would like to go to Otto Harris, who's been patiently on stage waiting to be called on. So thank you for waiting.
No, thanks for bringing me up. This is like adjacent to what we're talking about. Something that I think is interesting, and it's definitely like a first, specifically with generative art, is that before Bitcoin inscriptions, generative art has to reference like something that can read the JavaScript that makes like whatever the image is, and that's usually something that's stored somewhere else outside of the like individual piece. So, for example, like with art blocks, what you get is like a unique hash that it's like, you know, that unique hash like represents the piece that you got from art blocks, right? But with inscriptions now, you can actually toss the like the JavaScript library that reads the information that displays the artwork into the inscription itself. So it's actually more on chain than like art blocks generative art, for example. And I think that that's something that's really interesting about inscriptions that people from like other generative art communities, they're not really talking about it. And I think it's like a more interesting value proposition for Bitcoin inscriptions.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for Bitcoin inscriptions. Just because I did do a fire drill last week with Emblem. I've actually only owned 2, but I'm interested to see like what the next transition of utility is for inscriptions. I mean, I think we talked about this last week as well briefly. It started with images. It always does. All the NFTs are usually surround either early identity things or creating avatars. So we see art. We've seen some music. Are there any generative projects that have been introduced yet, Autohurst? Have you been following the generative art ordinals? Do those exist? Is there a community?
Yeah, definitely. I'm not to show my own stuff, but if you go over to the generative XYZ platform, I'm not affiliated with the platform at all, but I'm definitely paying attention to it right now. They have they kind of set up a system where you can generate a hash inside of an HTML to sort of accomplish what I was talking about before. And there's definitely a community forming around generative art, specifically on Bitcoin. And a lot of those people are active in the generative XYZ Discord. And it's really interesting because I see a lot of artists that are coming over from like FX Hash, for example, and actually art blocks as well to that community. But it's very slow. I think that people are realizing that it's really interesting that we can finally toss our art entirely on chain, especially for the generative artists. So it's definitely a slow thing, yeah, but it's happening for sure.
Interesting. I'm gonna have to look into that. Yeah, for sure, if you believe in crypto and decentralization, storing on Bitcoin is probably the safest method of storage that you're gonna get, more superior to IPFS and Arweave and some of the other alternatives until something else comes back out. Well, we have been going at this for 2.5 hours. I do want to end the show. I want to appreciate everyone for coming on. It's been an incredible space. Saw a lot of awesome people come in and attend, and hopefully every episode, we do this every Friday. Usually it's at noon Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific. We had to do an hour earlier this week. So we will be back next week on Friday with our guests, with Leo, with Mafika, with Adam and Ethord. We'll be discovering historical NFTs, collecting Bitcoin NFTs, and pretty much everything that is the opposite of what you see within the flipping community and some of these traditional or these typical influencer-based spaces. Not getting a stab at them. We're just trying to show that there is more to NFTs than just flipping. We love collecting. We love intricate debates, talking philosophy, and also just being, very authentic because there is a lot of other stuff out there. So I'm excited to see what happens, man. Anybody on stage have any final words before we close this up?
Oh. No, but I just love that we're doing these long spaces. We got a lot of stuff. We fit a lot of different topics in here today. I love the fine art take, and I see like Fernandi is down there in the audience, like giving some hearts and stuff. So I'm sure she'd probably be more qualified to talk about some of this stuff than maybe you or I, Jake. So maybe we can get her up on maybe the next one to dive into that a little more if she's at all interested.
Yeah, make sure you guys give V a follow, Little Shibe too, some of the OGs, the creators in the space. V, we're going to get you up here one day. I've been trying to schedule a pod with her for years now at this point. We're going to get it one day and record a great, awesome conversation. She's an amazing 27. She created some NFTs in 2017. I think probably the first female NFT artist to deploy an individual contract. So truly down there with some greatness. Thank you guys for coming on. I'm also an owner, so I do want it to be a disclaimer. I do own one of her pieces as well. Thank you guys for listening and watching. We'll see you next week.